Hello, everyone, and welcome to LFC Transfer Room, where the transfer news has been slow and consistent about Andre and a few other things, but players are now making their way back. People are starting to find their way back to, I was going to say Melwood then. God, that's a blast from the past. To the Action Training Centre, people are having good games. You know, we've had Van Dijk's done well, McAllister's done well, Nunes scoring again. So today we're gonna look at some of the transfer stories. We're gonna look at a build-up. We're gonna start the build-up. It's Wednesday. We should be starting the build. Let's face it, we're playing at 12:30. We're gonna have a rant about that as well, because why not? Have a rant about the 12:30. Jay Muse straight back. Kev, welcome back, buddy. And, you know, sometimes you have an asset, someone like Kev, and all the other streams try and steal him. But, you know, we've managed, after fierce negotiation, to keep Kev with the LFC transfer room. And we've even got a little announcement video for Kev.
Unbelievable. That is quality. I'll give you that.
Welcome back, Kev. We won't go into... Good to see you back on the stream. We won't go into away or anything like that, but it's good to see you back just at the right time, just for when Man City and Liverpool are coming. Another 12:30. Are you hyped? Are you ready?
Do you know what, mate? I'd like to say it's nice to be back. I have been away for personal reasons, which I don't want to go into. But yeah, I needed time away. Spend time with the priority, which was family. So I just want to say, nice to be back. Thanks for the nice messages in the comments, Jay Muse. Overly, we'll see more from Jen and others, Hellier as well. If I've missed anyone, I apologise. But no, nice to be back, mate. Yeah, I'm all geared up for Saturday and getting up early to watch a match that should be kicking off a little bit later. But you know, we'll get into that later.
I'm starting to feel like I'm Drew. Do you know what I mean? Anyone Drew's in America. Well, Ray, you're in America. Got to get up early to watch football. Yeah. I mean, you'll be getting up in the middle of the night, won't you, Race?
I'll be getting up at 5:30 in the morning.
I mean, that just ruined my weekend. Get up at 5:30, for example. If you lose a football match, that just ruins everything. Julius, where in the world are you, sir? Joining us for the first time?
Yes, joining from Germany. So I'm joining from Germany, so it will be 13:30 for me at Saturday. That's even a bit better maybe than 12:30. But yeah, I'm also hyped and excited about this game. This time I feel there might be some possibilities. So yes.
Well, we're going to start by looking at the fastly becoming most boring transfer story of this build-up to a window, which is Andre. Kev, it looked like it was nailed on. Now it looks like it's not nailed on. Now it looks like they want to go with McAllister. Now it looks like staying at DM. Now it looks like they want to do this. Now it looks like Fulham are wanting to do this. And it's all just gone a bit weird. And is it kind of taking the sparkle away from the transfer?
Not necessarily. I think this was always gonna happen. I think what you find with someone like Andre, especially after winning the Copa de Libertadores the other week as well, that's added more valuation to an already great player, in which he had a fantastic game. The Jackanoris have started, which inevitably was going to happen. They started a little bit early because of the win. I don't see it any other way. You know, you've got people saying don't believe the British journalists, listen to the other journalists. Everyone's taking sides. We saw during the transfer window in the summer how many times we went round certain players. It's a nice to have. But I'm not getting carried away. I'm not going to get involved in it too much because I'd rather be on the sidelines. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, and we move on to other things. McAllister's proved that he can play that position, whether we like it or not. That's where we are at the minute. Mac has been, I think, one of our best players this season, and it's nice to see a squad that is actually playing well and rotating well. And we've got, although it was a big concern of mine in the summer, it's actually not of a big concern. But I'll be happy if we get Andre in. I think it'll be like for like if we can get rid of Thiago, sadly. But, you know, if he doesn't come, he doesn't come. And the price was always going to go up. So if we didn't get that back, if we didn't get something in place beforehand in the summer and say, right, we'll come back in the winter transfer window, then it was only right it was going to get pushed up because of his win. So no, it is what it is at the minute. People have different opinions to myself, and you know, I'm totally right. Do you know what I mean? That's why we debate it. But I'm not getting involved in it too much as of yet. If it happens, mate.
I mean, Jamie was saying Andre outplayed Maka last night, but Maka was playing left mid. I mean, is there a role that guy can't play, Race?
Not really. I mean, he's proven himself a very versatile midfielder. You know, but I think that, you know, Maka, you know, he's been put in this position, you know, kind of out of necessity because we don't really have anyone else in that position. And I think, I mean, he's definitely capable of putting in a good shift there and performing well, but I still think we need to bring in a number 6, and ideally it would be Andre, or if it's someone else. You know, it's a worrying cause that, you know, if you want to challenge for a title, you want to be in this for the long run, you got to have, you know, some depth, you got to have some more quality, I think. And we all know McAllister, I think, is, you know, it's not his natural position. His natural position is more in the number 8, you know, going box to box, whatnot, and getting forward. So, you know, I just worry that, you know, he's already shown, you know, that he's already up to, you know, already at reached the 5 yellow cards, was already suspended for a game, you know, and that's kind of showing that a little bit that, you know, he's got to make some fouls and whatnot, and just kind of out of position. And, you know, there's been some performances that have me worried, like, man, we really can't have this guy there all year, because I don't think it's not the long-term solution. I don't think we definitely need to eye someone, whether it's in January or we wait until next summer, which I hope we don't do. But, you know, this Andre situation is, I mean, I was, you know, I'm always worried about, you know, oh, it's a done deal, and then we wait till the next window, and then it just doesn't happen. We all saw it last year with Jude Bellingham. We always thought he was going to be with us, and of course that didn't happen. And, you know, it's never nailed on until someone reports it. You get the here we go, you get the signed on the dotted line. You know, it's never official until it's official. And so anytime you almost wait to, you know, agree to those personal terms, and then you have to wait a little bit. You know, you allow other clubs to come in, you allow, you know, his feet kind of to go up, you know, and then they come back in January and say, oh, we actually want a little more from him. You know, we value him a little more because he was so instrumental, you know, in our run there. And so, you know, I've always been one to say that when you find a player, you want to get the done deal as soon as possible. But I don't know. I don't know who to believe in this saga. Like you said, we agree to it. He's coming to Liverpool. We're not interested anymore. And, you know, now we're back, more interest. And it's just a bunch of smoke and mirrors either way. I don't know what to believe, honestly. And until we get closer to, you know, that January, the transfer window opening in January, you know, it could be like the week before, where then we start to heat up. But I think it's still up in the air for me. I just don't know what to expect.
Julius, we're in this weird thing, aren't we? Obviously, Andre's seemingly the solution that's going to solve all our woes and everything. You know, we need a DM and stuff like that. Despite the fact everyone's like, we've got no DMs, but apart from Endo and apart from Bajetic, and you know, so there's 2 straight away. McAllister's playing there. We're playing when Jones plays. We play almost like a double DM sort of someone comes back and there's two of them. It's either Trent moves forward, Jones moves back, Szoboszlai moves. I mean, do we lose something if we just get an out-and-out DM? You know, if I think I said this last week, if Guardiola was doing this no DM type rotation, double DM, it'd be revolutionising the game. Klopp does it. There's a massive gaping hole, but we've got the best defensive record in the league, so it's not that much of a gaping hole. I get there's inadequacies and stuff like that. So what's your take on it all?
I feel, especially in short term, the 6 or the defensive midfield is still the part of the squad where you need to strengthen it like almost immediately, because I feel the defensive record is good till now, but you got a bit lucky sometimes. You have the best goalkeeper of the league also, and that played a part in just conceding 10 goals in the league till now. And I also feel it's like what Ray said, it's about the long run when you want to compete for titles. And I feel sometimes, as you said, with Guardiola, maybe that would be seen a bit more favorable, but Liverpool under Klopp and Klopp in general always needed that strong defensive holding 6, like you say it nowadays, to have like a really good balance. We had it in the best seasons with Fabinho then. So I feel that's still necessarily a part of strengthening the squad. Even short term, I guess you have to think defensive wise. Then in the like midterm future, how you want to proceed after Robbo maybe loses a bit of his quality when he gets older. Have to think about Van Dijk and his who comes after that. But I feel like short term, it's still the most important person is a defensive midfield, and Andre would be the perfect fit. And we talked about him so much, and you heard about him so much. So yeah, I was for a long time I was thinking he would just come. So that would be, I am now a bit worried about all the news, because I thought it's a pretty straight story. He says he wants to stay and fulfill his promise, and then he wants to come to us, and then it's all a done deal. Quality-wise, he won a bit now in the last half year. I don't know how the club sees it character-wise, if he now is not that clear on wanting to play for us.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this countless times, haven't we, Kev, where journalists have got to fill column inches. So Liverpool do their business. A lot of their business they do really quiet. And this Andre thing, it seems to be a secret everyone's known about and stuff like that, because we tried to get it done and didn't get it done. So I'm kind of on the fence of I think it may be done. It's just people are trying to fill column inches by linking it to other clubs and creating a bit of a story. It's been linked to Man U, been linked to Fulham, been linked to this. Journalists have got to come up with stories to get clicks, to get engagement, to get adverts, to get money. So do you think it's a lot more of they don't actually know if it's been done? You know, they're asking the club, the club have said this and stuff like that, but there's no actual direct quotes when they say the club said this or that.
No, there's not, and that's the way I like our club to be run. I don't want it to be put in the press every week who we're getting, who we're not getting. I think leading up to the Copa Libertadores as well, we were linked with the Boca Juniors player Esquiles Fernandez as well, who's another number 6. So that put questions into that, and I think that's where that came back. And the fact that Liverpool were also looking at elsewhere within South America for another player. Both had decent games, one for Boca and one for Fluminense, and ends up winning it. That's always been the case, and it's come early because of how early the Copa Libertadores was, because that was on November the 4th. You've now got an additional month to run with the Andre. Because unless Liverpool came in the next day and got it signed, sealed, delivered, this is always going to rumble on, and it will continue to rumble on until hopefully the first day of January, or just after Christmas, 27th of January. We like to announce things. We announced Virgil van Dijk on the 27th, so I'd like something like that to be done, and we bring them in. 2 different players in Andre and in Fernandez both do the number 6 differently. One's more of a defensive player in that Fernandes, and then you got Andre, who's more of a Thiago kind of player, who's similar to him. At the end of the day, the agent's probably speaking. You've also got, you've got the club trying to build up a bids of players. You've got agents involved. It's over in South America because we're not used to that kind of market. We're new to it in a way. You don't know what's going on. Do you know what I mean? It's as I said, we're in Jackanory world at the minute, and we're going to continue with that, and it's going to ebb and flow. There's going to be times where we'll be winning a race. I like to know where they get these adjectives to come up with, or superlatives to describe this, because we're going to run out of them by the end of this week or next week, because we're either winning the race or we're behind, or Liverpool need to decide, Liverpool are moving elsewhere. Yeah, but again, though, James, it goes back to what you said. It's all about clicks. It's all about hits. It's all about making money. So with the Casado thing last in summer, and others as well. Thuram's coming back onto the scene as well. So there's loads of ways, and and as us, we will debate everyone. But I don't know whether that he will be the answer. I hope he is, but again, I'm not getting involved in it, because I think we get too involved in these names, and we then end up going down cul-de-sacs and then get frustrated when we don't get people like him in, and get frustrated he's moved elsewhere. But our priorities may be at lying elsewhere, a left centre-back. In Tiano, is he going to come? Have Liverpool looked at that and thought, well, we can get till summer. Some people won't like that, but we can get today with our midfield at the minute. There's loads of things up in the air, mate, and until something's decided, I'm not getting involved in any of it whatsoever. I'll look at it from the outside and tip my foot in the water, and until it's actually, he comes and he's got the Liverpool top on, I'm not going to say any more than what I have.
Sorry. Until he leans.
Exactly. I'll sit on the fence. He is a good player, and if he does come in, he looks as though he can come in and do a job for us. And I think that's the frustrating thing, is we see a quality player like Andre. He's a winner now. And that's what we want. We want winners coming into this side. He's young as well. He's good playing. He's better. He's similar to Thiago, a younger version. Happy days. But I'm not gonna get myself involved in all the hoopla and all that like that until he's leaning there and he's saying James is my favourite host.
Well, Kev, my angel. Thank you very much, Jen. Always appreciate your support for the channel. And I know you've been asking for the last few weeks, but he's back. And he's sharing common sense with everyone. I think what it comes down to really, Race, is what, and this is what everyone's debating in the chat, which is left centre-back, defensive midfielder. What will give us more defensive stability? Because obviously Robertson was, I think, on most metrics was top 5 player, and now he's injured for a little bit. Suddenly Costas comes in and we look a little bit more things. So if you've got Trent inverting, do you get that left centre-back in and you get someone who can sort of play that left back, left centre-back? Is that more defensive stability than changing McAllister?
It's a good question there. Because I think, we all look at the transfer window, and of course, revamping our midfield was the top priority. But number 2 was, getting in another center back for depth, because the future of that position, we talk in terms of Joe Gomez and Joel Matip, their futures are uncertain with us. So bringing in another center back was certainly on the horizon, if not that window, this window, or the next window. And so it makes sense, like you mentioned, to have that left-sided center back with Trent, going inverted, and then you kind of solidifying it with kind of a back 3 there with Robertson. But it's really, for me, going to depend on kind of this next month and how we play. It's now we're past the international breaks. We're not going to have another break for a while now. The games are going to come hot and heavy. We're going to have multiple games in a week, sometimes 3, especially around that Boxing Day period. It's everyone's depth is going to be tested across the league. It's going to be, injuries are going to pop up. They're going to happen. And so I couldn't give you a definitive answer right now, but just based on, someone, going down or just the form or whatever we see, we've already seen our center backs like Kanate having a couple injuries here and there. So I guess right now I kind of lean towards center back just to, shore up, those in the back line there. Yeah. And so, it's going to be tough, this next month of game. This is where when you start talk about, challenging for titles, this is where you really have to separate yourselves. You have to get the points, whether it's a draw here or there, it's not going to be the best result, but it's going to get the job done and getting those 3 points when you need them. And it starts this week, of course, with Man City, getting, a result there. And so, if we win this game, get 3 points, go top of the league here, I mean, that's going to do miles for our conference going into this heavy period. Because I think, we all agree going forward, we're as dangerous as anyone in the league. It's midfield, it's particularly defense, and then the number 6 is where we're kind of having some questions. So, I guess to answer your question, I guess center back would kind of be where I would lean right now, but certainly open to change if certain things happen.
Julius, I'm going to move on the story, and there's no better person to ask than a German about a German player who is supposedly getting a new contract to wade off Liverpool's interest, because obviously with the risk of Salah and a bid coming in and final year of the contract, Leroy Sane looks to be the name in Liverpool frame. Klopp's a big fan. Obviously, Sane's a big fan of Klopp, German to German. But people don't tend to leave Bayern unless Bayern want you to leave, do they?
Yeah, that's true. I guess Bayern is one of the biggest clubs in the world still, and they up their salary, so they mostly can at least compete with the other big clubs and maybe the bigger money clubs, but not the bigger clubs in general in England or around the world. So yeah, I can't really recall a lot of stories where players left Bayern when they really wanted them to stay. And just to get that out of the way, as someone who has seen a lot of Sané, I feel that's not a bad news for Liverpool if he can't leave Bayern.
You're not a fan?
He certainly has like some outstanding qualities for a winger, but I feel Sané, he had a really good season at City, and then he lost it there a bit, and they wanted him gone. And the last years, actually, so for being German, I have to put up with a lot of Bayern stories in the news and a lot of discussion about our biggest club here. And it's like the first year, the first part of a season where everybody agrees, yeah, he's really a really good player. In the last years at Bayern, he wasn't like always celebrated. He was at some points some of the most criticized players, so he wasn't really consistent. Everybody talked about his potential still, but he's not that young anymore, so potential is like
he's about to turn 28, isn't he?
Yeah, so till when you can rely on potential if you get older and you not show it like constantly. I think that's what makes a player really world class. He has some really good qualities, but I feel he wasn't that consistent in his career. He also always had, I think, in this like justified discussions about his work rate, which also seems like a bit irritating for me that Klopp should be such a big fan of him, because that was also a point where he got in a little bit of bad, sorry, losing the words, but when Guardiola and he didn't agree anymore. So that's also some work rate issues. And I feel that that's something that doesn't come necessarily like naturally to Klopp or the players he likes. So that's also a point. And then the consistency. Then when you hear now the money they talk about at Bayern, it's like 28 million euros, I guess, a week, not a year, but still a lot of money. And so that's also a lot of money. He won't be cheap. He's not running out of contract right now. I feel there's like a lot of factors when I'm looking at it where I'm like, well, I don't feel he will be the solution for Liverpool.
I think, Kev, when you think about the market at the moment, there's a couple of areas in positions where there's not a great raft of players at this moment in time. One's right wing. Obviously, we've got the best one. We've got Salah. And one's DM. There's not a whole raft of high-quality DMs out there at the moment. So when you start to go through the right wings and stuff, and Sane's not a Salah replacement. He's a creator more than he is a scorer, isn't he? But there isn't too many out there at the moment, is there?
There isn't, but I've said this before. I think when Salah came, we didn't expect the levels he was going to get to.
Yeah.
So what we're doing now is we're trying to replace the player that Salah is and not buying someone who has the potential to reach. Now, what I would look at it as, we've had a new vibe of an upgrade in our midfield, which was needed. We will eventually lose all three of the famous three that started our three up front. Is it a time for a change in formation? Is it a chance? Is it an opportunity to change that version and not necessarily go with the same three? Because if you go with the same three, they'll always be looked at and reviewed as the Mane and the Salah and the Firmino of the Liverpool era. It's hard with Sane. Sane has frustrated me at times, and it's more frustration since he's left Man City. I thought he was a great player for Man City. He had great pace. He showed the desire to win, and always caused us was always a thorn in our backyard. And every time we played him, because of his pace and his scoring against us as well. I have to agree with Julius. I think he has fallen away for somewhat, and he has kind of rekindled his Bayern, what Bayern saw him when he left Man City over the last season. And you're now starting to see a new, enhanced Sane than what he was. But I agree with Julius. I thought he was young, and then you start seeing he's 28, and you go, yeah. There you go. That and that may be the issue, but I can see why he wants him, because you've got someone who reached the pinnacle in the Premier League, knows what it's like to play for one of the big teams. So I can understand us going for him as a short-term replacement. But the money that you're looking involved in Sane, would that be not better to go for the Napoli winger and try and bring him in and try and create something with him and try and create or bring someone in? Do you go for Saka? Do you know what I mean? That's the other alternative. But again, I think we're trying to replace. It's a bit like in Barcelona. They're trying to when Messi left, you lose those goals, but you're not. But you're trying to replace those goals with someone who hasn't got that potential or shown that at the minute. You need people who are young enough and have the desire to get to that potential. So you buy in players who can reach those limits. We took a gamble with Salah, and we didn't realise that Salah was going to be as good as what he was. Otherwise everyone would have been around him. But we made it work, and that's what we need to do. We have to find an alternative to that. I would say play Slobberslide there if you could. There's alternatives we've got. It's not necessarily the right mix, and that's why I'm thinking at times you just need to look at a new version and just try and say, well, is this a way of change? Is this a new version? And if so, do we go with two up front and a number 10? Do we stick with the three? But then you have to buy someone young enough who's got the desire and shows that he'll get the world potential and you can reach those heights. There will be a drop-off, but you don't want that drop-off to be as much as 20 goals. You need someone who can hit 15 straight away when they come in. Sane could potentially do that because he's been here before, experienced, and has the pace still, and has shown the desire that I saw when he was at City this season. And it may be the change in the fact that he's playing with Kane up front and he's used to that kind of player. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's alternatives out there. We need to. It's not just getting Salah and going, right, well, we need someone who can do that, because no one's doing that in the world at the minute. That's why that's where I stand with it. And it could see another alteration up front, and we change our formation in some sense to bring someone in, and then try and work with that. But there's alternatives out there. Harry's made a great shout for Elise, who I quite like a lot. And every time I see him play for Palace, looks very good. And there's others as well. But it's about getting the player who can do that, rather than you could even play Darwin there and play Nunes.
That's my shout, by the way. I want Darwin there.
I think if you look at the Newcastle game, sums up where he should be playing for me, which is on that right-hand side. That's his go-to finish. Have that in your locker and have him on the right-hand side playing in that position. That then gives you the ability then to look at all alternatives in a natural number 9, or on the other side if Diaz decides he wants to go to Barcelona.
Now, Race has been in the chat, unsurprisingly, I was going to say a boat ton. I was going to use the F ton of names thrown out there. To give you a few, Xavi Simons, who's obviously at PSG, so that'll be a lot harder to get done. Pedro Neto, Jared Bowen, Diaby, Bakayoko, Sane, Soboslai, Jota, and we've just said Diaz, Doak, Gordon, Elise. I mean, there's a lot of names, but Kev kind of summarises the point, which is at some point, one of our forwards has got to hit the Salah numbers or the Mane numbers, or all of them need to hit Mane if we're going to stay at the top. You can't just have 3 average strikers. One of them has to get themselves into the stratosphere, or we have to sign one that is on the verge of breaking through and we think could break into the top 20 in the world. Who do you think from the list of everyone that everyone's put together and your own personal opinion is that key?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of names there. I've always, when they first bought him, Villa did Diaby. I think he's one that has kind of caught my eye. And you look at him as like, a quote solid replacement, just being able, left-footed, being able to cut in, just kind of that type of player. He's kind of one that I'm kind of keeping my eye on for now. I think he's performed well for Villa. Still young of age. The only thing with that move is, Villa's going to be hard in negotiations for that. I mean, you saw how Grealish, the price tag for Grealish to Man City, it's just thinking about negotiation for him is going to be tough. It's always going to be a tough ask of whoever we bring in or whatever it is, to replace Salah's production. Like you said, some sort of combination between, the front 3 or maybe it's more from midfield or whatever, and we have to think about, changing a formation or changing tactics, whatever, until I see it from Klopp, kind of this 4-3-3, I'm not going to say we need to do something yet. I know it's on the horizon, because, you just can't run the same formation forever. You have to be somewhat adaptable. I know Klopp's done a great job of adapting players into his system and making it work. And so there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I mean, we're getting linked with, every winger under the sun, as long as Salah's future is still somewhat up in the air. And it's also the availability of Salah too is something that you really can't replace or bank on. You just kind of hope that that's kind of there. And the mentality too that Salah has. I think you just see the drive from him, such a great person and all the intangibles from a player. I mean, Salah is 10 out of 10 on all of those. And so, that's what I think is the hardest part to replace is just like the availability and kind of that drive going forward and just kind of recognizing what it means to be, the main man, the star player, in a Liverpool team and a team that's performed at the highest level and won everything in recent years. So it's more than just replacing the on-field product too. And so, it's an impossible task to predict, who's who could try and replace him, who you could target. You can only look at, the type of player kind of, who's up and coming. Cause like, as Kev mentioned, we never expected this from Salah when he first came here, just kind of we knew him as a Chelsea reject, went to Roma, performed well over there. We brought him in and then all of a sudden he hits 40 plus goals in his first season. Like, oh, okay, we got a player here. And now he set that super high expectation. And now you can't almost expect that from another player. So it's going to be a process to whoever we scout, bring in. If it's multiple players we we bring in for a position or someone internally or whatever, like you mentioned, Nunez going out to the right and then signing someone else to play through the middle. It's all, it's a longer conversation. I'm sure we could have for another day, but it's just tough to predict, honestly.
Not going to go get Haaland next year when they're relegated from City. The points deduction.
Oh yeah.
A question you can answer, Race, that got asked in the chat, and the chat's going crazy. Please keep it going. I'm trying to put as many comments that fit into what we're talking about as possible. Are you having turkey tomorrow? Is it tomorrow?
No, it's tomorrow. Yes, I'm not. There's a reason why we only eat it once a year. No one really wants to talk about why it's only once a year because it's not that great. It's kind of overrated. I'm for the first year I can make my own Thanksgiving dinner here, so I will not be having turkey.
Tofurkey. Like the tofu version. Julius Jen mentioned in the comments, and as someone that has obviously given us a wonderful donation today, she mentioned a player called Takefusu Kubo, who plays for Real Sociedad. Now, so far, he plays as a right winger. I don't know if he's left-footed. I assume he is. But so far this year, he's played 12 games, 5 goals, 4 assists. Now, those are verging on, and he's 22, verging on Salah, Roma numbers. If you can get that into double figures on both by the end of the season, that's some good numbers, isn't it? That seems to be a good possibility. Is there any other name that really stands out to you? That one to me, just thinking about it, actually, a 22-year-old making strides. Real Sociedad will have a release clause because all Spanish players do. What about you? Is there any right wing that stands out for you that we bring in? Because you could bring him in and keep Salah for another year and have them learning from each other. At 22.
I quite like Kubo. So this year, everything I saw from La Liga and from him, I quite liked it, and I could see him getting in that role. He's still young. He's from Japan, which also reminds me of a great club success story called Shinji Kagawa, which was something that happened in Dortmund and was really good to look at. I just feel in general when you see him, he feels like a player Klopp could really, really well develop. So yeah, I like him. I like him this season. Also won a Player of the Month award in La Liga this season. So he's really good. He's really young. Sociedad is also a team which really has some interesting tactic and aspects in there. So he's quite disciplined about that, and that's also, I think, a good thing for Liverpool. I think that's a very, very interesting candidate for that position. I also quite like Jared Bowen. I have to say that I would think he could fit in as some kind of player who maybe works a bit more, doesn't put on that much numbers himself, but maybe serves the team that well that some other could compensate the numbers we will be missing when Salah will be gone. So that are like 2 players I can really think of. I think it's also a question of how long term you're planning this and how long-term will Klopp be there, because Klopp is one of or maybe he's the one coach in the world. He could come up to me and be like, hey, I met a lad in the supermarket and I think he will fit on the right wing and I will make it work. And I would be like, yeah, well, probably will work. So I think you can go for another type of player when Klopp is there, because you can trust he makes him his player and he makes him well. If Klopp isn't in Liverpool for a very long time anymore and you plan long time for that winger, maybe you have to go for another kind of player you would normally go for. I think that's also part of the situation with Klopp's contract. And also, but yeah, to come back to your question, I really like Kubo. I think that's a nice player. You spoke about Spanish release clauses also, so you maybe wouldn't have to fight a lot in negotiations. And I also feel like Spanish teams aren't the high selling teams of the world, so you don't get record numbers mostly there. So I think that's really a really good shout by Jen there.
No, Helio You know, because we're calling you basically the German football expert now. That's pretty much Xavi Simons, 4 goals, 7 assists. Julius, you've seen him. You know, you're watching the Bundesliga. Now he's owned by PSG. He's on loan, isn't he, to RB Leipzig this year? So whilst his numbers are great, the better he does, the better it's hard.
It's just I think like not a complicated situation for him. It's like impossible, sadly, to get him right now because they won't buy him, loan him out, and then sell him in the next year before he even played for them when he's putting up a show like that every game mostly. It's absolutely true if you watch Bundesliga, if you watch Leipzig, which you sometimes have to. They play sometimes really good football, and mostly because of him. He's an outstanding player. He's really young too. He brings everything with him to be like a really, really big star. I also feel he has, beneath all these qualities on the pitch, you can see, I feel he's also quite marketable. So like for PR reasons and all that stuff, that's a player that's going to be certainly, or most certainly, that's going to be a really big star in the future. But somebody already bought him and they have a lot of money. They don't like losing their star players without putting in a heavy fight when that could happen. And yeah, just that situation now. He's on loan now. He never really played for PSG. So when he will come back from loan, they won't sell him that season. And when he keeps his performance like that, I don't know if we can afford him.
I don't think we can. But we're going to start now because, you know, we're building up to it. We're building up to another 12:30 kickoff. And it's Liverpool Man City. It's a real shame that this should be after 5 o'clock where it's dark, the lights are on, it's got the atmosphere, you've been able to booze for half the day. But it's not happening. It's happening early in the morning, 5:30 for race, 12:30 for us. And we're going to start the build-up. So in the final 20 minutes, we're going to do some of the build-up. And this will probably be a little bit more ranty than everyone else's as they start to build it up. But the first thing I'm going to start with you, Kev, is something Jamie Hughes put in. Premier League clubs vote against a ban of loan deals between associated clubs. So now, in theory, the Saudi club who owns Newcastle could send Neves back, and the teams that voted against it are all Middle Eastern owned and funded and stuff like that. And it feels very, it's going wrong somewhere. And they're trying to cut the loopholes and stuff like that. But obviously now, because of the voting and how the voting system's set up, they've got the power dynamic now, some of these things. How are you feeling about this sort of voting and loan rules and being able to buy someone from a club to get around financial fair play and loan them back and stuff like that?
This is the problem that the Premier League have brought on themselves by thinking that they can regulate themselves. There's too many loopholes within the game. There's too many within the Premier League, and we're seeing them being utilised by certain clubs like Chelsea, Manchester City, pressure on from Saudi-funded governments to take over certain clubs in this league, who are now it's incredulous is probably the word I'd use for the Premier League at the minute. They're trying to negate all this. We're going through a stage now of cleaning up and cleansing the game to show that we don't need an independent regulator, and we have bite when we give out sanctions and stuff. This was always on the cards, and once you go down this route of you can't buy from Saudi or you can't loan players from the Saudi, you know that the 7 clubs are going to turn up are going to be the ones that actually are the ones that are Saudi based or have certain kind of want that door left open. It doesn't surprise me whatsoever. It is what it is, but there's too many loopholes, and the more you have, the more you're going to have these issues and these problems. And that's why self-regulating doesn't actually work for me. It needs an independent body who are big enough and man enough who can look into this a lot more. There's certain things that go on in the world. You look at the Dutch League, they have real-time information that their league have for finances of any team at their disposal at any point. Anyone in La Liga has to provide, even if it's an extension, have to provide that information to La Liga first before they'll approve it. We are going to be going down the same route. We need something probably in the middle, I think, in between what the Dutch do and in between what the Spanish do. Until we get to that point, we are going to have a lot of this going on, and many people aren't going to be happy with it. But that's what you get when you turn around and say we only need 14 people, 14 clubs to get the vote through. When a majority of them are owned by outside of this country and owned by certain areas of the world that we wouldn't want as part of our owners, and that's the sad side of it. You've got Chelsea going down every loophole and every cul-de-sac of any transfer to get that through. That's going to come back and bite them at some point. 115 charges against Man City, if found guilty. You know, there's a lot of... They're trying to sanitize the whole league, and they're trying to do too much at once. I think what needs to be done is that they're trying to prove self-governing. It can work. I don't think it can. This is what was inevitable going to happen. And I think as a democracy and a democratic vote, it has to be put towards the Premier clubs. But they will have the leading votes because, you know, the likes of Sheffield United are getting involved and going, well, wait there, we're Saudi owned. We're going to go against that vote. Wolves is another one that you're scratching your head at as to why you've gone against. Exactly.
Agents, isn't it? All the agents. But these deals.
But this is the problem when you self-govern, because you're not willing to take things on board or take things out. That's why we're hearing things since Everton. You know, you got things coming out from 10 years ago under the Abramovich era. You've got loads of things going on because they have to prove something to the government that we don't want this, and we are trying to do something about it. And look, when we do something about it, we've got teeth. But it's the wrong. It's far too late, and we're too far down the line. We need something in place. We need to be regulated. We need to have something in place that brings parity, not only to the bottom teams, but also to the top, and not affording the top teams to move away. That's why we need something like a financial fair play or sustainability in place, because if that goes, you lose that chance and that opportunity for people at the lower level to move up through the league and gain what they can. Yeah, it's going to take you longer. We get that, but that's the way it is. 6 run this league at the minute. It shouldn't be that. It should be the league running the league itself, not 6 teams that dictate and cause rule. And we're part of that 6. So we have to take some of that responsibility on. But at some point, we need the self-governing to move away from, and we need, you know, we are in a time. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an amnesty at some point, and giving teams certain amounts of time that in the last 10 years, if you've done something, come clean now. Otherwise, from June of next year, we're going to be looking into it, and points will be deducted. We may go down that route, but we need something in place. We need it to be ruthless, and that's why I think an independent, but that independent regulator has to have teeth. It has to have more than what UEFA have got, more than what FA have got, and people will listen. And that's where we need. I want someone who's been found guilty to be given the rightful sanction or fine or whatever it is. And we want consistency with that. We want people to not be afraid to take these charges to certain clubs. We have to take that. That needs to happen. And if it means Everton getting, unfortunately for Everton, they are at the front hall of this, and it's come at a very bad time when the government are trying to get in self-regulated in, and the Premier League are trying to do something to turn that away. And what's the best way to do it? Let's go for Everton. Let's go because they've only got one charge, and we'll go after them. Now, they did say they were guilty. I think it will get reduced. I think it'll only be about a 4-point deduction, something like that. But I'm not a financial lawyer, so I'm not going to get into the realms as to what it is or what it isn't. But that's what we need. I want someone, if they get found guilty of something, there's sanctions in place, and it's bite. It's not just, a a £200,000 fine for a club that have got billionaires as their owner. It's just changed them. So apologies for the rant, but
no, that's what we're here for. I think for me the Everton thing's crazy because Everton have been. There's no benefit for being open and transparent. You're getting punished for being transparent. Yeah. Everton was like, actually, yeah, we've seen this. This is it. Here's all the.
We are guilty. We
are guilty. Yeah. And then it's bosh, maximum punishment. There's no reprieve because of their openness. And you've got another club that are hiding, dodging, moving money to different countries to pay people in different ways. There's all the evidence. And because they're not being open, because they're not being honest, because they are trying to move money around, they can't bring forward the relevant issues and fines and actions. Now, thankfully, we have a German football expert and an American sports expert in Race and Julius. One of the great things that America's got, which people really don't like the idea of over here, but they don't really understand it, I don't think, well enough, which is a salary cap race. Mm-hmm. Like all major sports have a salary cap where teams have got to work within a cap of earnings, and German clubs have got something different in terms of they've got to make a profit and stuff like that, and that's how they function. But Race, what do you think about that side of things in terms of just setting out, actually, well, this is what your TV revenue would be for your viewership, therefore this is what you can spend on salary, and having it proportionized correctly?
I think having any sort of kind of salary cap or restrictions without kind of on your own and not having it kind of across Europe and across who you compete with would kind of be unfair or disadvantage, because like if you want to compete,
Spain have got a salary cap. I think they introduced it recently.
Okay. So like I think just universally, I think if it's not across the board kind of the same standard, kind of create a level playing field, I think it would be a little unfair because, like you said, we compete in the Champions League. And I think, that would almost be a little imbalance. The reason we have the salary cap here in American sports is to create kind of parity throughout the league and not let one team, kind of rise up above the rest forever. I mean, that's why we have, the quote big six here, because those six teams, the richest clubs, are always at the top because they have the most money. And in our leagues here, we don't really have that. Yes, we have our big market teams who are more open to spending their money, because we also, in most of our sports, have a salary floor as well. You have to spend so much money on your team to then, basically between these lines here. So, and you have some owners that are more willing to spend and whatnot. And you still have the cheapskate owners that try to win as much but spend as little as possible. So I think if there's not some sort of universal like salary cap across Europe, I don't think it would be smart to impose some sort of restriction on what you can spend, here and like you said with Spain, if they have their own thing, that's fine. But I think if it's not a similar guideline across, it would be a little unfair. And so if having the salary cap here in America is kind of nice, because, teams, when they all of a sudden have all these great players that they have to spend, then they have to kind of offload them. They have to trade them. We have a lot of trades over here. They have to, kind of find, get some return. Of course, we have a draft system here where you're drafting the top, collegiate players and whatnot. It's a whole different system, as you know. So it's kind of a big, change though, proposal to have, in the Premier League, to have some sort of restriction on that. And, financial fair play, I guess, is the one sort of way to sort of track to keep the big money spending in check. But as we've seen, it's not really kind of being upheld. Man City are averting every single charge possible to not have any sort of punishment. Chelsea as well. And now Everton are kind of, facing the brunt of that, like you said. And so, it's certainly a change of pace, of course, when I view my sports over here versus over in England. Of course, it's nice with Liverpool being at a big, being a fan of a big club that are willing to spend money, even though obviously we're not spending as much as money. It's big to point out FSG and whatnot, but it's certainly the business side of things is what comes into play. When you talk about spending money and certainly so. It would definitely be a radical change, but I wouldn't be in favor of it unless it's something that's across the board, kind of all teams in Europe kind of are on the same playing field in terms of spending money.
Now, Julius, I understand, and you'll please correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand the German model is a club has to turn a profit, not a large profit, but it has to turn a profit every year, and it can only spend what it generates in terms of merchandising and stuff like that. And Bayern seemingly make more merchandising money than any other club in world football. I don't know if that's German efficiency or just creative accounting, but that model is very much sort of not just throw as much money at it as possible. You have to demonstrate cause and effect to everything. I don't know if you've got an independent regulator, but the league anyway want to see that everything is fair and equitable, don't they? In terms of how you've got your money, but the league is still very unfair in Bayern's favour.
It still is. It's mostly, you can't it's not like it brings teams very close together, but like the most important thing about German football, and that's also maybe sometimes when I talk about Premier League and all the other numbers of money that are not very like usual in German football, I have a very German view of football, of fan culture maybe, but the most important part is the club can't be owned by anyone but the club itself and by the people who are club members. So you have to 51% of the club has to be in the hand of the club members. And that means also you can't have unlimited money because you can't have an owner, you can't have an investor that big. So there are naturally limits in that setting that we have here. There are still weaknesses. There are still exploits like Leipzig. It's also a multi-club ownership system. When we talked about the loans right now, it's a general problem. I think they're I could go on for an hour with all the wrong decisions football made to protect football, but multi-club ownerships, state-owned clubs, that's two obvious things that play a part in that discussion too, and that shouldn't be allowed from the start. So that's just symptoms now, because why would you want to have multi-club ownership? Because you want to do something with it. That can't be a surprise. They want to help each other out now. That's a business model. That stuff, I know it's a bit romantic, and as I said, maybe a German view on it, but I feel sometimes I'm a bit of a purist what football is about, and the soul of the sport and the emotion for the fans. I still think, wouldn't it be a nice idea to have a competition where everybody can compete, a sports competition, and not competition who has the best investor or the best I don't know, business administration study guys in the office to turn some profit. I feel that would be close to the original idea and the part of that sport I really like. I feel you have that discussion with salary caps and with Champions League and all that stuff. Sometimes I feel maybe all the big clubs should really leave to Super League or whatever, do that stuff, and you can have your international fun there, and you have national leagues who are really for the fans, who are with emotions. I know it's a different discussion in England, but I feel very strongly about that core values. That means that's an emotional sport for everyone. I feel there are clubs who play in League 3 or 4, whatever, who have a big fan base, and they still are big fans, even if you lose every weekend, that's part of experiencing football. So I don't know if it would necessarily hurt football to turn back the screw in mostly everything about that financial stuff. I know it won't happen, so that's a bit of dreaming. Talking about regulations and fair punishment, like Kev said, that's also a good warm-up or build-up for Man City versus Liverpool, because that's the club obvious in the Premier League who shouldn't be there, but there are lots more.
I really like the 51% rule, just generally. I think it's, Liverpool should be on 51% by the fans. We should have the right to be able to invest and buy in our club. And I think when you've got, because this is what Man United's problem is at this moment in time, because they are stocks and shares and it's owned by fans, the level of financial transparency they've got to give opens every single door and mistake that they're doing. And I really like that, because I think that allows for independent accounting, independent regulation. It allows for big firms like PwC to come in, audit your books and tell you everything that you've done and track every money trail, because PwC have got global and they're the most rigorous auditors I've ever met in my entire life, and I never want to see them again. but it allows that sort of level of transparency because the ownership is the fans and it's shares, and you can buy shares and you can invest in your club and blah 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 blah. And I know it's not necessarily done in the stocks and shares way, but I like that theory of it where you go, well, 51% has to be owned by fans and stocks and shares by fans, and no fan can own more than 1/1,000,000th of a share. Because there's 1,000,000 shares and everyone's allowed a maximum of 10, for example, and it just sets some rules in place. It'd be really nice for fans to own part of everything that they invest in, everything they spend. Like, we talk about it every day. I'd buy a share. I'd buy a couple of shares in the club if I could. And it's just I romanticize about that model of the 51% because I think it should be us being able to say, for example, to Hicks and Gillette years ago, out. We all vote. You're putting your thing up for sale because we have the power.
Yeah, just in general about that point, I feel it's not always working in Germany. As I said, there are like clubs who work around that. There are like some exceptions, but it also, what you said, it makes up for some really nice stories. We have these clubs where every member comes together and has like an actual voting power, and we have the stories like Hertha BSC from Berlin, kind of a big club now, League 2, but they voted a fan for president against like a guy who wanted to be president, backed by politics and whatever, in the main city of Germany. And it's kind of an upset, but it's what the fans wanted. And now there's a guy like sitting in a straitjacket, smoking all the time in the stadium, being the president, because the fans wanted it. So you have that stories. And as I said, I just feel how much heart can you lose in that sport, huh?
Kev for president. No, King Kev. Oh, that's even better.
No, it's not you. It's not James. We discussed this before we came on.
Okay. We're gonna finish because I'm not on before the game. I'm not sure if any of you guys are on before the Man City game.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna do score predictions. Please put your score predictions in the chat. We're just gonna close off with some Man City Liverpool score predictions. Whilst these guys have a think, I'm going to kick it off. I am going to say 3-1 Liverpool. I think it'll be 2-1 and we'll get one in the 90-odd minute to make it 3-1. And I'm going to go Salah, Nunez, Szoboszlai. And theirs will probably be Haaland. So I'm 3-1 us. I know we're away. I just think our counter-attack is so aggressive, and I think that's where it'll work for us. Kev, Jen says 8-0.
I wish I could say that. I think it'll be a very close game. I'm going with Helia. It will be a 2-1 narrow victory for Liverpool.
John's gone for a 2-1 to Man City, or are you saying to Liverpool because City are at home, aren't they? Race, what are you going with?
I'll say if it was the other United club, it'd be other Manchester club, it'd be 8-0. But I'm gonna say 2-2. I'm not gonna be bold enough to predict a win. I'll say Nunez brace though. I'll say Nunez will get a brace. 2-2 for me.
And Julius?
Yeah, I would go with like 3-2 for Liverpool. I feel it's going to be spectacular. I feel our defense won't look good every time, but I feel, as you said, like offense-wise, we can really hurt them this time. And yeah, I'm also looking for a Nunez brace, yes.
I have a gut feeling because it's a 12:30. It's going to be a really boring 1-0, isn't it? Where no one can really get into the game because that's how it always seems to work with us at this. But
a penalty goal.
Yeah. Gomez or Costas has got Joe Gomez winner. Paul Lindo is committed to Joe Gomez scoring the winner. I'll give you that, Paul. You are always wanting Joe Gomez to get the winner. Well, this has been LFC Transfer Room. This has been talking about Andre for the 7,273rd stream in a row. Talk a little bit about Sane, and we had a cathartic rant about the loan system and how people are financially messing things around. If you do want to see the Kev video, you just go back at the start of this. You can watch it. It's about a minute in. I'm not going to play it again because I've already probably demonetized this entire stream by using Dire Straits music within there at some point. So this is LFC Transfer Room. Thank you very much to Kev, Race, and Julius. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.